You look gorgeous. Your makeup
Right.
looks super nice.
Thanks, did it myself.
Really?
You use a little
Super nice.
VB, I use the green, and then I use the cinnamon, and I kind of do a little thing.
I love the green. I love the green. It's a really good color on you.
But yeah, no, we're gonna have a great time.
Yes.
Victoria Beckham, I am absolutely thrilled to have you in the studio. I loved the doc. The reception has been amazing. I'm wearing a Victoria Beckham because I wear your clothes anyway. This isn't just a special moment because I knew I was going to see you. I've worn them for years. Love your makeup. Just love basically everything about you. And I'm so glad you did this doc because everyone gets to kind of see a different side. And I'm curious for you, what has it been like now that it's out in the world and everybody is responding to it?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. I feel honoured to be here. You look incredible in that suit.
Thank you.
And it's good to see you again because we first met when we first moved to Los Angeles, so a long time ago. So it's great to see you again, and thank you for having me. I've been so blown away by the response of the documentary. I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. You know, I think I was being very, very honest. I was so surprised when Netflix actually asked me to do this. I genuinely questioned, does anybody really want to see what I do every day when I go to work? And I genuinely mean that. And so I was surprised. I said no a few times.
I imagine.
And then my husband, he was the one that convinced me that it was the right thing to do and that I should do it. But in answer to your question, I've been really blown away by the response. I've had incredible messages from people that can relate to my story or people that might find my story inspiring in some way. So I feel quite humbled by the whole experience. I've always wanted to do this. Throughout my life, I've used clothes to become someone else, be the person that I always wanted to be, that maybe naturally I wasn't. I used to customize a school uniform in the bathroom at lunchtime. I used to love watching my mum get dressed up. You know, she really cared and made the best of herself. I remember my mum saying to me, if you dress up to get on the aeroplane, you know, if there's any chance of being upgraded, they're always going to look at who looks the best. I mean, the truth is, there is no first class on budget airlines.
Really gave over to it, and I think it really shows. And the one part for me that I was so upset about was just the misogyny when you're looking at what you had to endure with the press. We forget about it because I lived through it. I remember it, and you know, I get the British Pressure Special. It's a different kind of sport over there than it is here in the States. It was amazing to see that kind of scrutiny and ridicule you had to go through, like at every moment in your life, and talking about being weighed on national television with a 6-month-old. What was that like for you to go back and look at that and kind of relive a little of that? You
know, it would not be allowed nowadays. I think people have to be much more accountable for what they say. At the time, it was really difficult. I was so young, growing up in the public eye, and you know, I didn't know what I saw when I looked in the mirror. It really did mess with me, and I've never spoken about that before. I never want to come across as I'm complaining. You know, the conversation just naturally went there with Nadia when we were reflecting and, you know, looking at my journey from when I was a child up until now. And there was certainly a thread that we could see appearing from when I was a child and when I was bullied at school to when I was struggling at dancing school. And so I didn't go into this process even thinking that these things would necessarily come up. You know, this predominantly is a fashion documentary, but my story of how I got into fashion obviously was a time to really reflect on all elements of my journey. So it was really difficult. I think people have been surprised and reminded of what it was like back then. And we're so much more aware nowadays of mental health. And it's been interesting to shine a light on it. I think a lot of people have been able to relate. It was just very public with me. But I never like to look like I'm complaining or say, poor me. Look, I realise I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed. I live a really privileged life. But, you know, it's had its ups and downs. And that was important to talk about for the story.
I will say you are very lucky and you have lived a privileged life, but you have also fought really hard for it. You know, it wasn't like you were born into this, you know, you worked for it, and obviously one decision led to another, and we are where we are, but you worked really hard for it.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I never, up until making this documentary, I've never looked at my journey. It's always about living in the present and looking into the future. I'm so ambitious, and I'm not afraid, finally, as a woman, to say I am ambitious. I'm really ambitious, and I always say dream big and then dream even bigger. But throughout this process, I was forced to reflect and look at my journey, and it has never come easy. It never has. When I was at school, I was never very academic. You know, nothing has ever come easy. I've always had to work really, really hard at it. And so when I now look back on my journey, I think if this can inspire anybody, encourage anybody to go for their dreams and not listen to the no, and to just believe in yourself and not be afraid to put in the work.
I know that was amazing, too, to learn about how you're able to compartmentalize the noise, you know, even about like the scrutiny. Like obviously you had talked about like you were lying to yourself in a way, your family, but you got a handle on it, right? You were able to figure out how to protect yourself. And one of the things in the doc, too, that I really appreciated is when you talked about I can't show the emotion, right? It's all hell's breaking loose. It's pouring down rain. This may not happen, the dress. And you're like, if I show the emotion, you know, then that is a domino effect for everybody else.
Victoria in show mode. She's obviously very focused.
On the left, over there.
She's going over the collection, going over the looks, going over the models, going over the music. I've never seen my wife flustered.
And that takes such like emotional discipline. And I'd love to ask you, like, where is that come? I mean, were you always that way? Did you have to kind of earn it to get to that point where you can be just so even in crisis and chaos?
I think I've always been quite a disciplined person. You know, that's just who I am. That's how I lead my life. But I cope quite well in those intense situations. And this is how I choose to lead my team. You know, I have to internalize those things, because if not, you know, it has like a domino effect, and that is not productive. And I surround myself with great people. We all work very, very closely and very well together. And I'm just mindful of that is one of my, might you call it leadership skills, if you like. I'm glass half full. I'm very, very positive. I believe in positive energy. You know, but there's a lot going on the inside.
Yeah, I was wondering, is she going off camera and just yelling, "Fuck," and then coming back?
Yeah.
Like it was kind of amazing how calm you remained.
Well, listen, let's be honest. I've got 4 children as
Yeah,
well.
copy that.
Okay, and so I think that as a mum, you learn to, you know.
Yeah. Four. I have 2.
Yeah.
So, but I am not as calm as you. But I did take that. That was very inspiring to me.
The truth is, I am a control freak. Well, I say I went into the documentary process a control freak, and I've come out the other end a reformed control freak, because I haven't had that control. I mean, I've seen little bits of the documentary along the way, but I hadn't seen the final edit until the premiere. I hadn't seen it.
How was that?
I was a little nervous, but I thought long and hard before I agreed to do the documentary. And I watched all the fashion documentaries that are out there. And by that point, I was ready. You know, I've been in the fashion industry for almost 2 decades. And I've been fighting the preconceptions because of that 4-year period of when I was in the Spice Girls, a time that I'm so proud of, but I've been so defined by that 4-year period in my life. It's taken 2 decades to get here, and now felt like the time was right for me to be able to reflect, talk about my time in the Spice Girls without it damaging the brand that I have built, the brand that has earned its right to show in Paris. I have credibility with what I've built. No one's going to now think of my brand as a celebrity brand. Now, it's taken 20 years to get to that point, but now was the right time. And with regards to being a control freak, there are certain things that are out of your control. You can't control the rain.
No.
Look, will I do
No.
another fashion show outside? I'm not so sure, because it was definitely stressful. But you also have to, there are certain things you can't control. It is what it is. It's raining. What are we going to do? We're just going to hope that it stops. And it did.
And the show was fantastic.
Thank you so much.
All right. So after David's doc went global, you popped out of that doc, as we would say. You stole the show in Hollywood. We would say that. And the T-shirt was my favorite, right? You know, beyond, like, all of it was so good. When you go out in the world, out and about, did people respond to you differently after that documentary was out?
They really did. They really did. And it was really liberating for me, because when I watched David's documentary, I genuinely questioned why the response was what it was towards me. But I think we all see ourselves and hear ourselves very differently to how others see and hear us. No one likes to see themselves on the television. No one likes how they sound. And so I was quite uncertain of how I came across. And I was told, respect the process, lean into the process, and trust the incredible team that were making the show, which I did. They were right, I was wrong, and there's something really liberating about being wrong about these things. But it was interesting that the general feeling was so wonderful from the general public, and people approaching us and being so kind. And I remember one time we went to the local pub in the countryside, and when we got back in the car, someone had pinned a note to the front of the car that said, "Dear Posh and Becks, on behalf of the British public, we're really sorry." And that was so sweet. And that was not the intention when David obviously began the process of his documentary. The conversation naturally went there because it was a huge part of his story that we had never spoken about before. It happened very naturally and very organically, and I think that we were so blown away. And it was the response to David's that ultimately gave me the confidence to do my own, because I genuinely mean it when I say I was surprised anybody wanted to know my story. And I mean that. I'm not one to...
I understand that. It's
Yeah.
also very female. We're like, oh,
Yes.
no, why would you, what about me? I'm just here working.
I love the sleeve. That's exactly what you wanted,
It's really cool, that cruise. Why did I never get a suit? Quite rude.
I did offer.
I kind of prefer the black one.
Yeah.
have a
Maybe
look.
the black is less matchy.
I like the black one, actually.
Yeah. It's a really busy moment. But then when you've got all of the family, it is a juggle. Is anybody upset? Has everybody got what they want?
It's interesting because your story, and it's kind of parallel to David. I don't mean kill me for saying this, but you know, he had to work really, really hard. Yes, he had natural he had amazing natural talent, but if he didn't work at it and do it and be there in the rain and wake up as a kid, I mean, you know, again and again and again and again, and have his parents like help him and support him, he probably wouldn't be David Beckham. And like for you were playing above your DNA as well. As you say, I'm not the best dancer, wasn't the best singer, but you had a certain kind of drive to prove to yourself or to prove to the bullies or to prove to whoever that you could do it, you know. But it took a lot of time and you know, energy, and those 10,000 hours that they talk about getting it right from, you know, even from the you got it all really well. Posh bikes, even to the wags. You nailed the wags. And I think it's amazing when Anna Wintour is like, we can be very snobby. It's a really harsh business. It's very tough in fashion. It's brutal. And the fact that you've been successful, I think, is you should really have those flowers. You should really take that because you have been successful. And through this whole experience of doing it for a year and having that show and obviously just being spectacular and the reception, what have you learned about yourself through this? And even sitting here and talking with you and the press, the response, have you learned anything about yourself?
It's taken this process for me to genuinely be proud and realize that finally I am enough. I've suffered from imposter syndrome a lot. And the one common denominator in those 2 decades working in fashion is me. I've had various teams, wonderful talent that comes and goes, and I've always thought it's because of someone else. And it wasn't until I showed in Paris, that first show in Paris, when I felt the warm reception after my first show and I had a standing ovation. And I looked at myself and I thought, this is a whole new team. The only person that has been here throughout this journey is me. I've got to have something to do with this. And it's happened through a lot of hard work. And I think that's one of the things that me and David both have in common. We've both had to work really, really hard and continue to work hard. You have to work really hard to maintain that success. Now is not when I sit back and say, oh, great, I've done it. Now I can truly start building what I've always dreamed about. The foundations are solid now. Now I can really start building the house. And that's what I mean about I'm always thinking forward. What excited me about this documentary is, yes, I've had an incredible journey so far, but what I'm really excited about, the most fun, is what happens now.
Oh, I'm excited about that too. This next decade of what's coming, I'm very, very excited about that.
And it's the same for David. When I look at David, he had an incredible career, but look at what he's doing now. And everything he's working on for the future. And none of this has happened without working hard, And I think we're both proof that if you focus, if you believe in yourself, surround yourself with the right people, you really can achieve incredible things.
It is. And also, you've been married for, 25 years now?
Yeah.
Is that like a quarter of a century? that takes work too. Anybody who's married knows it's not just that is very hard, to be married at 20. So congratulations first on that.
Thank you.
That's pretty amazing.
26 years.
Has to be 26.
26 years.
Wow.
And yeah.
Do you ever sometimes just look at each other and go, holy fuck, we're here?
We do. And, we've grown together. We were kids, I first met David when I was 22, he was 21. I was pregnant with Brooklyn at 24, and we got married at 25. We were kids.
Babies.
And we have grown together. When you get married so young, you don't ask, how many children do you want? Where do you want to live? Where do you see yourself in 20, 30, 40 years' time? You don't ask those questions when you're a kid, right? If you were marrying someone later on in life, you're going to want to ask those questions, right? We didn't. And I'm so thankful and grateful that we have grown and evolved together. Which I think is rare. You often hear in relationships, one says to the other, you've changed. Well, you'd like to think you've changed. If you've been with someone for 26 years and you haven't changed, there's a problem right there. We have both changed, but we've changed together. So we do. We often say that.
Yeah.
And it goes like that. Time goes like that, doesn't it?
It really, really does. Even for me, just seeing Harper and from one doc to the next, I'm like, wait, I remember when she was born. Yeah. And I remember, it's just like, wait, oh my God, she's like fully a teenager now. Okay, so this is going to get really granular, but you wear the perfect T-shirt in the doc, okay? There's a gray one, there's a white one, and most women will search their life to find the perfect white T-shirt. So can you talk to me about those T-shirts? And then also you have these, I don't know, the kids are calling them sets. I would call it like a sweatsuit. I guess that's kind of very Gen X of me. But you wear those in the doc too. Now, are those yours or are they coming? Do I have something to look forward to?
You might have something to look forward to with the tracksuit.
Okay.
I mean, look, the T-shirts, for me, I'm a T-shirt person.
Yeah.
And, for me, a T-shirt is, of an entry price point into my fashion brand. We're all looking for the perfect, simple T-shirt. But I think that, for me, is one of the things I really pride myself on. However basic, however simple something is, it's the consideration that goes into it. Making sure that it's got the right sleeve, making sure that it's the right quality of jersey, making sure that it's the right neck height. All those kind of details are things that I obsess over with products. We were talking about the eyeliner, obviously, before we started recording, and you were saying that you like the olive eyeliner. I don't like to put anything out there until I truly believe that it is best in class. There's millions of eyeliners out there. So why do I sell one eyeliner every 30 seconds? That's a lot of eyeliners, brown eyeliners. And people have so much choice from so many different brands. And I think that is proof, like the white T-shirt, that everything I do I really care about. And it's the perfect brown. And it lasts, like I tell you it's going to last. And it's about considering all those details. And ultimately, that's why I do what I do.
It is the perfect white T-shirt, I have to
Thank
say.
you very
And it
much.
looks, and you wear it very, very well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me just see what I want. Oh my God, the workout, you kill me with your workout. Oh my God. So what was the first exercise you did, like when you got into the gym? What was the first thing that you were like, obviously you started as a dancer, and the doc opens with that workout. And I'm someone that always has it in my head, like, I've got to do that workout. Oh, I got to get back on the Peloton. Oh, I got to do it. And then I'm looking at you in this document, just so strong and physically fit. What was the first thing that really hooked you?
When I used to work out, it was all about cardio. It was just about cardio. And then it was actually David who encouraged me to do less of the cardio. I mean, virtually no cardio. I can't stand it. And actually weight training, so lifting weights, which is something that is really important, especially to women as we are getting older. I want to look strong. I mean, mentally, I need the gym. It sets me up for the day. I work a lot. I'm a busy working mum, and for me, to get the best out of myself, it's an hour and a half in the gym, Monday to Friday. That's how I set my day up. But the weight training is key because I want to look strong. I want to be strong. I want to build muscle. I want to be healthy. And I think that the weight training really changed my body. And it's something that me and David do together 5 days a week. I do an hour and a half. He does an hour. I'm just saying. And he procrastinates as well. When we're in the gym, he really does.
Is he like chatty and changing the music and...
Yes, he'll do everything he can to actually not have to do what he should be doing in the gym. But it's nice. We have fun. We laugh a lot together. I think that's also key, in our relationship. We both take what we do very seriously, professionally, but we like to have fun. We like to laugh. And we do laugh a lot. And so we work out together in the gym. And really, it's thanks to him that I changed my workout.
Yeah, it's impressive. Okay, so... if you were to have, I mean, I know because we all have some kind of guilty pleasures, and I think you love a tequila, right?
Tequila, wine.
Wine. Is there anything else? I feel I got in last night and I was starving, and of course I got a salad and it was delicious, and then I got some French fries. I only had a few, but I needed that kind of.
Yeah.
I needed that French fry.
I think it's about balance.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have now learned. It's about balance. I don't consider I deny myself anything. It's about balance, and it's about being healthy. And I do like a glass of red wine or a tequila or some sake. I like sake as well.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
I like to have fun. I think it's so important.
It's so good. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some of the fun questions that I ask
Okay.
everybody on this podcast. So don't think about it too much.
Okay.
But what is your JOMO? So joy of missing out. What do you just love not to have to do?
Parties. We don't go to many parties. We like to host parties, and the Beckhams know how to have fun. I have to say, there's no greater joy than being able to have fun and dance and just have a good time with friends and family. But our favourite thing to do, if the weather's good enough, is to sit in the vegetable patch in the country and have a glass of wine on a Friday night after work. We love to do those things. So we don't do too many of the parties, getting all dressed up. We prefer to just really spend that quality time together or with the kids,
Well, David will have you there a half an hour before the host.
Oh, my gosh. What I didn't say, we went to a football match a couple of months ago. We were there 4 hours early, literally 4 hours early, because he was so worried that we were going to be late. Thankfully, I took a book, and I think I read sort of like 3/4 of a book whilst I was actually waiting for the game to start. But
That's funny. That's his tick, huh?
yes.
Right? Okay. All right. Then my other one is about like irrational fears. Like, do you have any irrational fears?
I have a big fear of bats and rats, but that's not irrational. I think that a lot of people have fears. Can I tell you what happened?
Yeah.
We were on holiday last summer, and we were in bed. We were both reading, so the lights were off, just our reading lights were on, and out of nowhere, this enormous bat. I mean, it was like Batman came at us. Literally, I was
Really?
like, Jesus, Val Kilmer flying right at
Yeah.
us. It was crazy. And David got out of bed and ran out of the room. I had to get out of bed. I had to find my dressing gown, and I was trying to get out of the room. He wouldn't let me out of the room. He's like, I can't open the door. There's a bat in there. I was like, I'm in here with the bat. So that just made my bat phobia even worse. But
So
yeah.
he runs out, leaves you to handle the bat. Were you outside, or was it in your country house, or where were you?
No, we were in France. It was a bat that was inside the hotel room. But yeah, I'm really scared of bats and rats.
Yeah, rats. I have a full-on rat
Yeah.
phobia. I think it is pretty irrational at this point. You'll hear me scream if I have to encounter one at any point in time. All right, I touched on it a little bit earlier about your childhood, about, your dad was self-made, and you talk about how much the family was part of that, right? You would help put things together and get in the van, and he would sell them. And, obviously, I would assume you learned part of your work ethic from him. Is there any memory for you in like a pinnacle memory that you go back to and you think about, oh, that was a changing point in my life, like how I viewed things, my perception of things. And, I know there's those things of like your mom circled the Spice Girls audition or something. There's like kind of those fun memories. But is there anything that you think about, Victoria, about, well, wow, that happened and I made a decision after that?
When I was growing up, I had the most wonderful upbringing. I really did. But, I was shy. I was quite an uncomfortable teenager. And I remember a very close family friend saying to my mother in front of me that I was morose. And I remember thinking, what does morose mean? And then I found out what it meant. And when you're 7 and an adult has said that you are morose, you become a little self-conscious. And I was just a little uncomfortable, as most kids are when they're growing up. And that really tormented me. That really did. And it stayed with me until I met the Spice Girls. And I talk about it in the documentary that people say, we love the Spice Girls. The Spice Girls changed my life. I love the Spice Girls. And if it wasn't for the Spice Girls, I wouldn't be who I am now, not just career-wise, but personality-wise. They made me realize that, be lighthearted, be funny. They made me realize I actually wasn't morose. I wasn't morose at all. They gave me my personality back. They gave me confidence in me. And I'll always be so thankful for them. I'd be a very, very different person. I probably would still be very insular, even more self-conscious, shy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny. The press still like you when you're what were they, the miserable cow? What do they call it when you because you don't smile? Yeah. But you're so not that, which I think is really interesting. Now people can see it for themselves when they watch these docs. It's so not you. But I would like David to kind of go to the right maybe sometime. I mean, is that because he's so vain? It's just this side for him?
Let me tell you, not anymore. Not anymore. Here's a fact. I've looked miserable. We've got time for this story. I've looked miserable for all these years because when we stand on the red carpet, this guy has always gone on the left. Okay, now I didn't realise that when I smile, which I do, I smile from the left, because if I smile from the right, I look unwell. Okay, so consequently, I'm smiling on the inside, but no one ever sees it. So that's why I look so moody.
Right, you ready? You got your ziplock. Classy. See you later. Where's your jacket?
It's fine.
Sure?
Where's your jacket?
It's in the car.
That's fine.
You don't want your jacket? See you later.
Bye. But look, I think that it's been such a journey, and I think that back in the days, people did get this impression of me that I was the miserable one that never smiled, and they're not wrong. I look at the pictures and I'm not surprised people said that. It was completely fair. But my story was being told by the media. There were crazy stories, miserable looking pictures, so I can't blame people for coming to that conclusion. I probably would have done the same thing. I think the good thing, not just through the documentary, but through social media, is now people have the opportunity to own the narrative, to tell the story themselves, as opposed to the media do that. So I think people have seen for some time through my social media, maybe she's not that person. And through the documentary, maybe it takes it that one step further. And that was never my intention, was to prove anybody wrong. I was just being myself. And I think that it's been such a process, and a process that I've really respected. I've trusted the team. They've been an amazing team. And I've been vulnerable. I've just been who I am.
And it's been well received.
Thank you.
Do you miss being blonde? That was the other question I wanted to know. Because in LA, you were blonde. You had that great blonde bob. And I just can imagine you right now on the pitch when you guys would go and with the kids and drop off. Do you miss that at all?
Do you know, I look back at all those different looks that I've had, the different hair, the different makeup, and the fashion. And people often say to me, what do you think? Do you cringe? And I don't cringe at anything. I look at everything and think it's been part of the
journey.
Look
fantastic.
I've learned so much, and I loved that blonde hair.
Yeah, it was good blonde hair.
Who knows? Who knows what we'll do next? Let's see.
I know, exactly. Keep us guessing. All right, so you've teased out a little bit that the foundation, we have our foundation. And I know that you get probably equal joy out of the fragrance, the clothes, and the makeup. I don't know. Keep me honest. If there's one that is makes you happier than the other, but what can you tell our listeners about what might be coming down the pike?
Well, I really am just scratching the surface. Now we really see an opportunity. Even before we began the process of the documentary, our business, fashion in its own right, is profitable. And to be able to say that nowadays, there's been lots of people talking about how the fashion industry, the big brands, are really, really struggling. So thankfully, even before the documentary, we were doing really, really well. And I think the great thing about that is that now I can really build the house that I always wanted. I'm just scratching the surface, both with fashion, different categories, makeup, the beauty, the fragrance. There's so much that I have to say, so much that I want to do. We see a huge opportunity with regards to retail expansion, geographical expansion for the brand as well. So I'm just going to take my time, not rush, and look at all the incredible opportunities that I now have, and really be able to do something meaningful.
Yeah, it is extraordinary that, that it was such a special moment when you were basically saved, right? And your investor came in and said, "Okay, we're going to have to make significant changes." Before I let you go, one last question about that. For you, that journey of humility, basically, right? Like I am going to fail. It's like unless I change. What was it in that moment that was the hardest thing for you to do to now be able to sit here and talk about that you have nothing but runway in front of you, right? Anything is possible at this point.
Look, it was very, very difficult. The business was not doing well at all, and we talk a lot about that in the documentary. I know what I know, and I really know what I don't know. And at that point, I'll hold my hands up and be responsible for problems that were happening internally with the business. But at that point, I knew what I didn't know, and I didn't know how to fix it. And so David Bellhausen, my investor, who has been an incredible support to me over the years, he really has. I would not have a business now if it wasn't for him. I promised him I will always show up. I will continue to work hard. And I haven't let him down, and he hasn't let me down. He's really believed in me. He tells me what he thinks. And I was given a bit of an ultimatum, and I had a choice. And I had no choice. To save the business, I had to listen to him, and we re-strategized the business, which was the right thing to do on so many levels. And that is one of the reasons why right now we are in the position that we are in, when the whole industry cannot necessarily tell the same story right now. So I'm so appreciative of him, and I was more than happy at that point. Of course it was difficult. You know, I was spending money on fabrics.
The plants.
The plants. People keep saying to me, what were those plants? They were like huge indoor trees.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I didn't know any different. And, you know, I came from an entertainment background. A lot of my team came from an entertainment background. We'd never worked in the fashion industry. But thankfully, through the help of David Bellhausen, you know, we've created a brand now that is desirable on so many levels, which has attracted the most incredible talent, both creatively and on the business side of things. So it was tough at the time because, of course, listen, any creative director would love to use the most expensive fabrics and the most expensive linings and not have to worry about the commercial side of the collection and not worrying about the wearability of clothes that you're presenting in fashion shows, all of the above. You know, I was given a complete free rein when it came to the creative, but that was not the right thing for the business.
Well, congratulations. I mean, the business is amazing. The clothes are amazing. And you've started at Girl Empowerment, right? Spice Girls was all about girl power, and I feel it's still about, female empowerment. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for drawing attention to a lot of things. And thank you for this gorgeous, designing this gorgeous suit in this perfect color, because it's my favorite.
Well, thank you. It looks so good on you.
Thank
it really
you.
does. Thank you so much for
Yeah, it's
inviting
great to
me
see you.
here
Of
today.
course.
I appreciate
Thanks so
it.
much, Victoria.